southern Egypt. 500 miles south of Cairo, on a desolate plain in the eastern region of the Sahara Desert, lies the mysterious archaeological site known as Nabta Playa. Discovered by a team of scientists in 1974, researchers believe the megalithic stones scattered here were once part of a vast and complex ritual center for an ancient civilization that thrived from 6400 to 3400 BC, just before the rise of the Egyptians.
We knew that there were many prehistoric sites in the Sahara, in this part of the Egyptian desert. What Nabta Playa is different is that it wasn't a settlement. It was clearly a ceremonial site, and a very intriguing one, and it had strange things. One of the centerpieces is a circle that has been called the mini Stonehenge of the desert.
For more than 3 decades, this circular stone structure and its intricate alignment to the belt stars of the Orion constellation have baffled archaeologists.
The builders of Nabta Playa seem to be aware of a level of physics and understandings of mathematics that they interlined into these structures, which clearly say they possessed some advanced knowledge of the constellations.
Engineer Robert Bivall and astrophysicist Thomas Brophy have studied the configuration of this mysterious monument for more than 10 years. In their book, Black Genesis, they suggest the stone circle is a star viewing diagram that aligns with the belt stars of Orion at the summer solstice.
The calendar circle is this smaller stone arrangement, and the megalithic alignments point to stars. Now, the calendar circle, we think, represents a diagram that teaches how the sky moves long term. What we're looking at right here is a small mock-up of the actual calendar circle of Nabta Playa. These actual stones would come up to about your knee, and the whole circle would be about 12 feet across or so. And there are these 2 sets of gates on the outer parts of the circle. And this gate is pointing towards where the summer solstice sun rises.
According to mainstream scientists, radiocarbon dating indicates the site was constructed nearly 7,000 years ago. Taking this time frame into account, Brophy studied the positioning of the gates and the center stones and discovered that it was then, in 4900 BC, when 3 of the center stones lined up precisely with 3 of the brightest stars in the constellation of Orion.
If we look up in the sky at that time, these 3 stones right here, they represent the Orion's belt stars exactly as they were seen at that time. So the idea is the stones represent a map of the stars in the sky.
Is it really possible, as some researchers believe, that the stones of Nabta Playa correspond with the alignment of Orion's belt as observed just before the summer solstice 7,000 years ago? If so, why and how would ancient man have created such an advanced diagram of this constellation? Mysteriously, the inhabitants of Nabta Playa vanished around 3400 BC. Some researchers believe they migrated 60 miles east, where Egypt's Nile Valley civilizations emerged in the 4th century BC.
The astronomy from Nabta Playa was exactly the same astronomy that the pyramid builders. So suddenly what we thought was original to the pharaohs was pushed back now to these prehistoric people thousands of years before.
Berlin, Germany, January 2016. Humboldt University professor Matthieu Ossendriver announces a revolutionary discovery in the field of astronomy. He translates a Babylonian text that shows the ancient people calculated the orbit of Jupiter more than 2,000 years ago, demonstrating an understanding of mathematical concepts that were not thought to have been developed until the 17th century. The sky watchers of Babylon also identified the constellations of the zodiac. But perhaps even more significant than the discovery that ancient people recognized the constellations as early as 5,000 years ago is the fact that they believed them to be intimately tied to events on Earth, imbued with the power of the gods.
Each sign has its own story. Each is tied to specific mythology. Different mythologies in different parts of the world, but the collection has sort of become standardized, more or less based on the Greek with a few exceptions. So the sign Aries is represented by the god Aries, the god of war. This is not only the warrior energy, but the ability to fight through a difficult problem. Taurus is the god Aphrodite, and this is important divine energy. It is love, beauty, sex, a sense of confidence in your appearance. Cancer is associated with the goddess Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, of the forest, and the moon. So the dark places that are important, but hard to navigate. So we have these 12 stories, these 12 signs, 12 different divine energies. The very first personality typology is born of our relationship with the sky. It's born of the stars. We're looking out into the celestial realm and we see ourselves.
In many ways, the zodiac truly is the language of the heavens. The positions of the constellations in the night sky also indicate the positions of the planets, as well as the position of the Earth in relation to the sun. Incredibly, ancient people had some understanding of this thousands of years before the invention of the telescope. And they closely watched the movement of these celestial bodies for divine messages.
This shows up really prominently in the Bible. For example, in the story of, or the Gospel of Matthew, there's this story about the Magi going to the birth of Jesus because they saw the Star of Bethlehem. But the point of that story is not that the Magi saw the Star of Bethlehem and thought it caused the birth of Jesus, but just that there was some sort of celestial omen or message that indicated that somebody important had been born. And that's part of the reason why some of the planets are named after specific gods. Like Jupiter in Greek is named Zeus, or Mercury is named Hermes, and so on and so forth. They tended to think that the planets and some of those celestial bodies were the celestial representations of those gods and had some power to convey messages from cosmos, as if the cosmos itself was alive and sentient and capable of speaking to humanity. And sometimes they'll go so far as to try to mirror events that are happening in the sky on Earth.
January 11th, 2006. The Hubble Space Telescope captures a never-before-seen image of the Orion Nebula, a massive star formation 1,500 light-years from Earth. The panoramic photo reveals more than 3,000 stars in various stages of life and gives researchers new insight into the formation of celestial objects and planetary systems. According to modern scientists, it is here, in this mysterious cloud of dust and gas, that stars and planets may have been created billions of years ago.
Astronomers usually refer to it as M42, not such a sexy name, but it's a stellar nursery. It's where stars are being born. And so this part of Orion gets a lot of study by astronomers.
You have this rapid star-forming region. You have these young stars and very likely many, many young planets that also form out of that gas and dust that collapse to make those stars in the Orion Nebula.
Now, stars being born obviously means that certain things are happening there on a level which we simply don't really understand.
As seen from Earth, the Orion constellation is one of the most prominent star formations in the night sky and has been revered by ancient cultures around the globe for thousands of years. Named after the Greek demigod Orion in the 8th century BC, When connected, the stars form the head, shoulders, belt, and feet of a man.
Orion is probably one of the most recognizable constellations in the sky, maybe only second to the Big Dipper. It's near the equator, and in the northern hemisphere, it's visible in the winter. It has a lot of bright stars and a big square. That's the body of Orion.
The three major stars in the constellation are Alnilam, Alnitak, and Mintaka. These are the belt stars of Orion, and most people recognize the constellation by these three stars right in a row.
According to Greek mythology, Orion was a giant born with superhuman abilities. A mighty hunter who killed animals with an unbreakable bronze club. When the Greek hero was eventually slain, he was placed among the stars for eternity.
His father was, in fact, Poseidon. So he knew a lot about oceans, and Poseidon apparently taught Orion how to walk on water.
There's another story about him being so big that when he walks through the ocean, his head and shoulders are above the ocean, so get a sense of his size. All of our astronomical bodies are named after major figures from Greek mythology. We have these wonderful texts that describe stars and how it is that they got their names. To write about the stars, to write about the heavens, to write about the bodies in space is essentially to be talking about the realm of the gods.
Now, the constellation of Orion, in all traditions, and particularly the Egyptian tradition, is usually regarded as a striding man. The Greeks saw him as a hunter. Many other cultures saw him as a giant.
Sometimes we have him depicted as smiting the enemy. Sometimes he is trampling across a serpent. But in each case, we know that Orion is depicted as a human being.
It's entirely possible that a character like Orion was based on an actual human being. Because we have to keep in mind that for the Greeks, what they called mythology or myth, the mythic past, was just older than ancient history.
Glastonbury, England, 1983. While researching the Glastonbury Zodiac, author Andrew Collins hears numerous accounts from people claiming to have experienced strange visions associated with the site. For Collins, this aspect of the mystery resonates most deeply, as he has experienced such visions himself.
One of the purposes of the Glastonbury Zodiac would seem to draw people towards it. During an earlier part of my life, I was drawn into the Glastonbury Zodiac quest. I started to receive dreams and visions, and I felt that I had to embark upon this quest to navigate from each different sign, going from place to place. And the sense is, at the end of it, is that you're contributing to some kind of global consciousness. For in my opinion, some kind of intelligence is responsible for drawing human experience, human knowledge, and uploading this into the system.
Profound visions have been reported at Glastonbury, dating all the way back to the modern-day rediscovery of the enormous landscape zodiac in 1927. When Catherine Maltwood first noticed the constellations in the landscape, she said that they jumped out at her as if in a flash of inspiration.
Maltwood's sudden discovery of the Glastonbury Zodiac is very interesting because it makes you wonder, was she herself in an altered state of consciousness when she had this flash of inspiration? Did she receive perhaps a message from an otherworldly, even extraterrestrial being who told her what is actually on the landscape at Glastonbury?
Brinsley Lepore Trench pointed out a curious detail of the Glastonbury Zodiac that he felt provided evidence of an extraterrestrial connection.
Trench had the idea that because there is just one of the twins of Gemini depicted in the Glastonbury Zodiac, the other twin is in outer space. It is a whole testimony to this tearing asunder of our family by the great tragic event of the fall of Atlantis.
Maltwood believed that the Glastonbury Zodiac is an earthly counterpart to the stellar temple called the Care City of the Celts, and that in fact it was a mirror of the Zodiac in the heavens, and that by going into altered states of consciousness, ancient shamans were able to travel into the stellar temple from the earthly temple.
Do the Gemini twins suggest a connection between Earth and the heavens? Could it be that the visions reported at Glastonbury are messages from an advanced extraterrestrial race? But if so, how?
Is it possible that all of these astrological influences convey alien messages inbound from somewhere else in the galaxy? Well, if the answer is yes, then the means of this communication is what we call quantum entanglement.
The theory of quantum entanglement states that if a particle is split into two parts, the parts will remain connected to one another, even when separated over large distances.
If two particles are quantum entangled, as we say, then as they travel off to different places in the universe, if you do something to this one, it instantaneously will affect this one.
Scientists suspect a potential application of quantum entanglement could be in faster-than-light communication.
Through the process of quantum entanglement, an extraterrestrial being could be millions of light years away and still be able to communicate with humans on Earth.